Hello everyone, my name is Eric Jones and we are going to look at a PowerPoint entitled Principles of Landscape Design. We're going to talk about the standards used to create, measure, discuss, and evaluate our landscape designs. And what we're talking about is we're actually in a creative mood. We're creating our landscape designs. We're having to measure our client's property. We're having to discuss with our clients the needs of them. Actually, we're the problem solver. I tell every one of my landscape design and landscape architecture students that when we are designing a landscape, we are the problem solvers. We're solving a problem for a client. They're wanting a nice backyard. They're wanting a nice landscaped front yard. They're wanting an outdoor room. We're taking care of drainage issues that they may have. We're doing that in our landscape design. We're the problem solvers of their property. And we're going to discuss it with them, find out what they need, solve their problems, and then based on our measurements of the property, we're going to evaluate it in a process we call site inventory and analysis, and we're going to, based on our expertise, solve that problem and present it to them in a landscape design. And designs are judged accordingly to how principles are applied. I grade my students on using the 6 principles of design. Did they incorporate it into their design? And then we start looking at, did they include the right plant materials and things of that nature. But to begin with, we're teaching them the principles of design. And most people actually have an inherent visual sense of these design principles. They may not know what they're called, but once you guys see it in the lecture and once I introduce it to my students in the classroom, they see what we're talking about because they've seen it before. They just may not know how to term it or discuss it, but it's built into them. They've seen it. It becomes natural to them once they see it. So here are the 6 principles of design. We start off with balance. Is the left side match the right side? Does the front match the back? And there's three types of balance that we'll talk to in the next slide. We have focalization of interest, or a focal point. Each design needs to have a focalization of interest. And basically what I like doing is getting people to the front door, is using a focal point for that. My main objective in the front yard is to get people to the front door. Simplicity, are we designing it simple enough that people can understand it? Don't overcomplicate it. I actually tell my students, sometimes you just have to start drawing. You have to see it on paper to realize that it's not going to work, or that it is going to work. The trash paper, the onion paper that we use, that and a Sharpie are 2 of our biggest design tools that we could ever have. Trash paper and a Sharpie, or a Pentel sign pen, my favorite pen in the world. We solve problems with those two inexpensive tools. Don't overcomplicate. Then we have rhythm and line. Does the project have rhythm? Does it have line? Is it proportioned? Is one side too heavy or the other? And do we have unity? Do we bring it all together? Unity meaning like, are we using the same type of stepping stone in the project to kind of bring everything together? So, but we'll talk more about these in detail as the lecture goes on. So, applying principles of design. Apply the design principles to all levels of exploration in the landscape. Try to use as many of them as you can. Within your cone of vision, that is the area that's going to fall within the line of vision. So basically my cone of vision is what I can see to the left, to the right, and down through my cone of vision. Consider the macro range, or the most distant view, and then the micro range, which is what's closer to me. You still want to apply the principles to the macro views, and then you want to apply them to the micro views. You want to be able to see design principles throughout your cone of vision. Balance. Balance is a state of being. And there's 3 types of balance. We have symmetrical, we have asymmetrical, we have proximal and distal. And with symmetric is really, it's a mirror image of what's on the left to what's on the right. Asymmetrical, I kind of describe it as you have stuff on the right, you have stuff on the left. They might not be exactly the same, but they just feel balanced. Either it's two smaller trees that equal one larger tree on the right. It's not a mirror image. And then we have proximal balance. Things that are further out, are they balanced to things that are closer to you? Closer meaning proximal, and distal being further out again. Didn't mean to get those two confused, but proximal is close to you, distal is further out. Is there a balance in between there? Symmetrical balance, again, it's formal balance. We're going to see this more in our English type garden settings. Everything that's based with hard lines matches from the left to the right. It's that mirror image of the opposite side, and each side is pretty much split down a central axis. It's exactly the same. Composition is easily understood. It's easy to follow. Everything is in shapes that we're used to seeing. Hard lines, squared off. There's not really any curvilinear design that we're used to seeing in the neighborhoods of today. Again, I base this on like an English style garden. Plants are frequently clipped, meaning that we're taking hedge clippers. We're keeping everything real formal. We're giving it that military buzz cut on the plants. Not my favorite thing to do, but there are times that we use hedge clippers, and that would be in a formal garden setting. Lines tend to be straight, and the edges are clearly defined. You're going to see metal edging underneath those boxwoods to keep those perfect straight lines and keep that rock dust in the path that you would see more like at a Renota Gardens or something like that. Real formal. I like it. It's not what I'd want to have for my front yard, but it's something I may want to have like in a private garden and in the back. But definitely seen on large campuses and things of that nature. But real easy to lay out. It would probably be one of my favorite properties to do irrigation for versus some of these curvilinear jobs that we've had. But again, just think of hard lines in what I like to call very delineated, military-looking, formal English gardens. Don't mean to use military words so much. I'm just used to it. But here you can see, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse moving on the screen or not. But we've got the sidewalk going up to the front of the house. Started with symmetrical balance of a little shrub on either side of the sidewalk. It's matching mirror image. You can peel the landscape over from the left and fold it back over onto the right, and it will match up. And even on the side of the driveway, we have the two larger evergreen trees that are matched on the right side of the property with the same two exact evergreen trees. So we have very, very good symmetrical balance in this slide right here. Here you can see it. We've got the center axis, as we talked about, down a straight line. The same number of shrubs match the same number of shrubs on the right. Left is equivalent to the right. We have the exact same number of deciduous trees on the left as we do on the right, and we actually have a wall that's matching. So it's identical. It is the mirror image. Now, with asymmetrical balance, here we can see that same slide that's done asymmetrical. Here we start off with two small shrubs. We have a deciduous tree. Well, over here we have two deciduous trees, and then we have a few shrubs. One deciduous tree. Jump over here, we have three shrubs, and then two deciduous trees. We're using the same plant material, but it's not a mirror image. And that's what we're going to call asymmetrical balance. It's still balanced, but it is not identical. It's not, mirrored image. So it's informal balance. Asymmetrical balance is informal. Plants should be irregularly placed on either side of an imaginary axis, as we just seen in that previous slide of going down the road. Mass or weight on either side of the axis appears to be balanced. Again, you're not feeling like one side's heavy and the other light. It's matched. It's matched per weight. You feel that weight difference. Curved lines obscure emerging edges, and natural contours identify asymmetry in the garden. And then asymmetrical design creates more interest with two sides to explore. So it's not the same thing. It's not, you can look left and look right and you're going to see something that's different. And here we have a good example. And as you can see, it's not the same. To the left of the driveway, we have three, looks like evergreen shrubs. We have a larger deciduous. And on the right-hand side of the property, we feel that balance of weight, but it's not an identical match. There's things on the left, there's things on the right, but they're not identical. And same with the driveway. We have shrubs that go to the left of the driveway, and we have shrubs that go to the right. It's balanced, but not the same. Proximal and distal balance, asymmetric balance that deals with the depth of the field of vision. Near and far balance are included in addition to the left and right. You need to consider off-site features. So you may have, and even when it comes to focal points, guys, there may be something in somebody else's yard that you want to make sure you keep that view for your clients. And we'll talk more about that when we get into to views and things. But consider those off-site features. You want to keep that balance of something that's big off in the distal background. So something proximal, you may want to have something large to keep that balance. Focalization of interest. Anything well designed has a focal point where viewers' eyes are first attracted. Boom, right to it. It could be, this time of year, a ginkgo tree that's turned bright yellow right before the leaves fall. Something like a Japanese maple. Something that's very unique. Usually, it's just one specialty tree that's in an area is what we use for our focal points. You select and position visually strong items onto the landscape composition, and focal points may have any of the following or combination: plants, hardscapes, architectural elements, color, movement, texture. And beginning designers, they tend to overuse the focal points. They may have 3 or 4, whereas you really only need 1. I like to do one close to the front door, which kind of brings the eyes to the front door and actually leads my client's guest to their front door, because that's what we try to do as a designer. From the front yard, get the clients to the front door. We're going to place focal points where attention is naturally drawn. Public area, the entryways. Do not place anything in a public area that will compete with the entry to the place. You want to accent it. Bring their eyes to that focal point, which will naturally draw them into the entrance, whether it's the entrance to the building, the front door of someone's home. You want to get them inside the building. Where do you want to draw this attention? Well, if focal points do not compete, you may use more than one, especially on large properties. It's okay to do that with a larger residential property, and definitely on commercial sites. The use of the single focal point may be appropriate for the small properties. Again, Japanese maple or something that's going to draw their eyes to that front door area. It doesn't necessarily have to be plant materials. Again, it could be a water feature. A water feature or a bird bath or something like that could be the focal point. Corner plantings. All right, corners of the outdoor rooms are natural places for the focal point. The end curve of the corner is also a good place for the specimen plant or accent plants that are less attracting than the specimen. End curve plants are usually taller than the out curve plants. So the corners would be the natural place for a focal point. And we will see, I think I've got a slide here. It's going to be just a little bit easier to explain that. Well, here we have could be a focal point for this one area, being on the outside, and then definitely, I wouldn't necessarily say that. That's more used for screening, but anything like on the out curve. Open lawn areas, paths, and strategically placed plants can lead the eye to the principal feature without distraction. Planting should be placed to easily lead the eye to this center of heightened interest. Next slide, we're going to see that definitely here. As you guys can see, I can see the next slide coming up. So let's take a look at this. Let's see a specimen plant here. Let's find that focal plant within this specimen. It's usually a little bit larger, and I'd say this right here I would use something like a Jap maple or a ginkgo again here, where everything else we have an accent plant that's just going to accent it. You're going to eyes are going to be led to that, and then you're going to see that focal point. Simplicity. All right, it's cluttered. Cluttered and fuzzy landscape cause people to feel uncomfortable. Avoid too many species, textures, too many curves, too many colors, too many shapes, too many angles. Arrange the plants so that they create a silhouette. Again, don't have too many species of plant materials. Use a combination of a few, but use several of one species instead of having a whole landscape design of 50 different plants. Use a handful of plants, but use several of each type to create more of a simple plan. Simplicity means understanding what is and what is not important in a landscape design. Details that will not have a major impact on the landscape are omitted to keep it cluttered. Sometimes you can over detail your plant material. Sometimes you can over design an area. And let's take a look at this picture here. This is good simplicity. And as you can see, you're using the same plant material. You got one tree, you've got a shrub, and you've got the same plants in front of it. You've got a mixture of the same plants here, and you've got a little higher plants in the background. Then you've got a corner planting, and then you've got your front foundation. So this is very simple. Plants are kept below the windows. We're using the same plant material just repetitively. And then if you look at this that does not have good simple, look how many different plant types we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different plants on a side foundation planting. Way too many different species of plant material here. Rhythm and line. Rhythm is used repetition within standard intervals. Rhythm is expressed through the placement of plants, park furniture, either individually or as a group. So we can use structural repetition, that we can use the same benches throughout a park. It makes you feel like you're part of the same place. It could be the same light post. You ever drive down a neighborhood and see the same mailboxes? The developers require that everybody have the same mailbox, or the developers require that everybody has a gas lantern or a electric street light in their yard. They're keeping it the same. Pattern repetition. We could actually use sidewalks patterns. It could be a type of brick pattern that we use throughout. It could be every so often we use a different colored stone that keeps that repetition going, and you feel like you're part of the same place. So right here we can actually see that we have these we've got all these rectangular shapes, and then we turn one on the side and we use a different color. This is a pattern repetition that makes you feel like you're part of the same place. Lines. They establish shape or form of the landscape. Lines are created where different materials meet. We can have hardscapes and turf. We can have turf and planting beds. And the one thing I like about this, and guys, we tell this in our landscape management to our landscape management students. One of the simplest things that we can do for a client that has had their property neglected for several months or even several years. You can go in and pine needle the property and rake the needles back and everything and clean it up. But if you don't give that bed edge a crisp, hard line, you're not doing it any justice. Actually taking a bed edger, or even if you got to use a spade or a shovel, and you cut a hard line and you pine needle and mulch it and you roll those edges under and you tuck it real nice, that line gives you that separation between turf and mulch beds, will do more for that client than really could imagine. Say they don't have enough money to do a complete new landscape, just going in and cleaning up the place and putting crisp lines and separating the turf from the planting beds, or the hardscapes from the turf, will do wonders for that client. And the strongest and most dominant line are the lines of a house. So accent it. Repeat the lines and the angle of the house will work with your landscape design. So if you have a formal ranch house, use some if you got a long ranch house, have a long sidewalk, have some plant materials planted on that. That's where you'd want to use your formal landscape design. If the house is offset, take advantage of those in curves and out curves of the house. You're using that rhythm to express your design. Informal, curvilinear design. Lines should be dramatic, done with a sense of flamboyancy and expressive in their nature. You need to have those wide scooping shrub bed lines, especially in the newer neighborhoods. Not so much with the ranch houses and everything, but even then you can do it. But if you're going to put curve beds, make it easy curve flow. And the one thing I tell about my students, and I see it all the time when they put their designs on their paper, they have like a shrub bed just kind of come in like that, and they've got this little area of grass. And I'm always telling them, guys, if you have to get the weed eater out and do flat trimming, the weed eater is designed to put the crisp edge on the beds. But if you have to turn the weed eater, the head of it horizontal, and do flat trimming, it's poor design. You should have had that curve, should have had that wide scooping inside curve that the maintenance guys don't have to flat trim with the weed eater. They need to have the mower get in there really well, and the weed eater guy only comes and cuts a hard, crisp line. So be expressive in your shape. Be flamboyant with your curves. Show them off. The lines should be very, very dramatic. Meandering lines suggest a naturalistic look that invites the user to casually stroll through and experience the landscape. We have a good picture here, one coming up. We have these curved lines in the landscape. Good picture there. And here you can see it really, really well. Except I would change one thing. If looking down on top of this plan, guys, and what I just mentioned, to the left and to the right, I would have knocked my students for this, because you can see where the turf is, but exactly right here you may have to do a little flat trimming. That would have helped out if that could have curved a little bit there, and definitely right here brought this out this way and made that more of a kidney bean there. You don't need to have this turf grass right there. Anytime that you have to turn the weed eater flat, you've not done any justice to it, and it just looks better. It just looks better not having that little triangle piece of grass. Let it curve on out. Let your mulch do that. As you can see, I've had to run a weed eater too many times in my life, and I've always wondered why these designers put grass where they do sometimes. But curvilinear lines that have weak or scalloped edges will not be visually interesting or pleasing to the eye. And we can see it definitely here, ladies and gentlemen. It's been better off to have this be a straight line and have a wide scooping curve over there. And just think about the poor old weed eater guy here. So, rectilinear lines, straight hedge. Edges of paving materials. They suggest quick, direct movement. Hey, get the traffic through the area and possibly get it to that front door. Angled lines can create opportunities for creating the bones or the framework of the landscape. And then lines that interconnect at right angles create an opportunity for reflection, stopping, or sitting. So when you do have those right angles, that's where you'd want to put a park bench. You may want to put a little area to sit, picnic tables, just an area that people could hang out. Again, we're going down the sidewalk. This just represents fast pedestrian traffic. Get people to where they need to go. Here we have a combination of rectilinear and curvilinear lines. It's kind of coming through. It kind of reminds me of how my professors first taught me this. They always talked about the four rivers of heaven that come together in the Middle East. The Tigris, Euphrates, and all these four rivers come together, the four rivers of heaven, and kind of was one of our first design projects that we actually had to do. The line planting. Let's see. So we have the planting line. If it's vertical, we're creating shapes of landscape spaces. Horizontal, we're doing our bed lines. Plants should be positioned to replicate the lines of the beds. Exactly. We'll go back to that one picture of the jagged edge. If we have our plant materials, they need to come up just shy of the turf, and it needs to follow that contour. If we have nice swooping bed edges, our plant materials need to replicate that and be balanced with it. It doesn't need to be spaced sporadically in it. Have your plant materials follow the bed lines. I mean, you can even outline it with liriope or another type of border plant that will help with it. Foundation planting, one of the most prominent planting lines in the house. You need to have it designed so it brings people to the entry. Connects man-made building with the natural landscape. Planting should reach out from the end of the building, and planting should reach forward from the entry. And this is bread and butter, guys. We teach this to our students, whether we're using, whether we're hand drawing or we're drawing something in CAD or we're using software such as Pro Landscape. Biggest part of my career has been doing foundation plantings, doing redos, landscape renovation, and redoing people's foundation plantings is good money. You're going to have biggest majority of your design will be with front foundation plantings. Here, nice curvilinear. Hey, you can get the mower in there. There's not going to be much flat trimming because you can get, you probably have to do it with a walk behind or a push mower, but the weed eater guy's not having to work his tail off. Front foundation planting. We're getting people to the front door. The sidewalk goes off to looks like their garage off to the side, but we want to take this landscape and get people to the front door. I guess one of my biggest pet peeves is when we start talking about color. I know this, one of the principles we talked about, but what really gets me is we have a brick house. We have a red brick house, and we do red brick pavers in front of it. I don't like that. I need contrast. So if I have a red brick house, I would want more of a natural color concrete paver, maybe brown, dark brown, or just white concrete. Another thing, one of my pet peeves is plant material that clashes with the brick. You know, I love a brick home, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to use something other than red trees in front of red brick or red shrubs in front of the house. I'm going to use more of whites, more of yellows, you know, colors that's going to stand out against the red brick. Proportion and scale. You know, the size of the relationship between the landscape features. You know, let's not have something way too large. Do we want to plant a willow oak that's going to get really huge and have, you know, a low, you know, like a ranch style house, single story? Or do you want to do it with something that's going to grow a little bit slower and actually be more proportioned vertically? Same thing with horizontal. Do we want to plant, again, with that ranch style house, do we want to plant you know, huge foundation planting that's going to cover it and you're going to have to keep pruning it because it's going to grow taller than the house? Or do we want to have this real 2-story or 2.5-story house and we plant little bitty shrubs that will never get any size and it's going to look, you know, proportionally just way off in our design? No, we want to have those spatial relationships, and sometimes we may have to use a software that we can see the plant material grow, you know, 5 to 7 years, or what it's going to look like in 10 years, and we're still going to say, whoa, that plant's just not growing fast enough. It's going to be way too small compared to the size of the house. And basically, you know, when I'm teaching my design students, I'm teaching them to pick out heights and widths of plants, and we do that in our preliminary design. We don't pick out the plant material until we get to planting design, to actually doing the planting plan. So when they're designing their property and they're doing a front foundation planting, they're going to pick their corner plants that are going to be, you know, the corner plants. They're going to pick out the size, they're going to pick out the shape, the width of the plant that it's going to get the maximum height, and then they're going to do you know, the shrubs in between. What size plant material do they want? What size plant tree do they want in the front yard? Do they want it to be a 40-foot spread tree, or do they want it to only be 20 foot? Do they want a tree that's going to grow 30 feet maximum height, or do they want one that's going to get 50 feet? They pick the sizes of the height and width of the plant material, and then they pick out the shrub, the plant material that's going to fit their specifications that they want. Bring the canopy down in stages. Have your tallest plants, then your intermediate, then your lowest. Bring it down in stages. Don't do it all at once. The height of the viewer should be considered. Children's perspective of the landscape is very different from an adult. So what's big to a child may be smaller to us. And we need to take that into consideration, especially for designing for a client with smaller children. And here we can actually see this in what we're talking about. So, large scale, you know, way too big a tree. Yeah, that's going to be shade trees, and eventually that's okay. But when we design it, guys, it needs to, you know, we're taking this into consideration. It all needs to be balanced based on height and width of the plants. Here we have the larger trees with the smaller house. Here we have the proportion size trees with the proportion size landscape. And then down here we have the small house with the small plants, and it just doesn't look balanced. I hope you guys are seeing this from the slides, from the pictures here, but you know, this is what we want to be normal as the middle pick here. Unity. All the separate parts contribute to the total design. It gives the landscape design a sense of oneness and interconnection. You can have different gardens, but if you have the unity within each garden, it brings it all together, or certain spaces. Unity in landscape design can be achieved by using plants, trees, or material that have repeating lines or shapes in a common hue or similar texture. However, too much unity in landscape design It can be boring, therefore it's important to introduce some variety or contrast into the landscape design. And always connect the indoor and outdoor use areas. And basically what we can see with this, guys, let's think about on the inside of our homes. Unity, what we're using throughout the house. Yeah, we're going to have different floors. You know, we may have carpet in the bedroom and hardwood throughout the house. But notice the interior doors. All the interior doors usually are the same. That's unity. So on the left side of the house and the right side of the house, we're using the same type of indoor, same type of interior doors. We're probably also using the same type of interior trim, the same type of crown molding, the same baseboard. All that brings it together and makes it part of the one, you know, the same design of the house. Could be using different colored paints, you know, different colored floors, but you know, something like trim and interior doors we're using throughout the house. We're using also the same color doorknobs, the same color door hinges. You know, that's unity. That's making the house total one. All right, characteristics that support the sixth design principle. So, architecture. Styles are either symmetrical or asymmetrical. Symmetrical styles tend to accept symmetrically balanced landscape. Asymmetrical designs here within architecture are generally better suited to have an asymmetric balance. So, you have a house that has two chimneys on the end. That's going to be symmetrical, so you're more likely to do a symmetrical balanced landscape versus one that's just got a chimney on one side and not on the other. You may tend to use an asymmetrical balance for that. Balance, though, should not be determined solely by architectural styles. They should just what would you say? They should just reflect from it. They shouldn't be solely based on it. Characteristics support the six design principles again. Plant material, specimen plants, they work well as focal point. Again, I love my Jap maples, I love my ginkgos, I love certain crepe myrtles, I love certain cherries. You know, anything that's going to have a very attractive bloom. It could be a plant that has a fragrance to it. It could actually be the color of the leaf material. It doesn't have to be what's blooming. But they use in public areas and they need to be placed at or near the entry to bring people's eyes to it. Accent plants. They're used to counterbalance a specimen plant without competing with the viewer's attention. Basically accenting it. They're not taking the eyes away from that focal point tree or shrub. Lesser secondary focal points, corners of the planting beds, secondary entries, so you may have a side entry off to the garage or something, intersections and sidewalks. Examples, upright yew, juniper, or hollies. And then we have our workhorse plants. They're used in massing and they fill large amounts of space. I love seeing a mass of Indian hawthorns, a mass of juniper type shrubs. Azaleas are good for mass plantings. It gives you that vibrant color when they bloom. And that's what we call our workhorse plants. Again, we're back to this slide. We got our specimen plant. We've got our mass plantings here would be our workhorses. We got some other fillers, some mass planting, workhorses, but everything's drawn to that specimen. And you've got the bench here. People can focus on the specimen plant there. Hardscapes. Hardscapes frequently create strong lines in the landscape. Whether they're curvilinear, whether they're hard 90-degree angles. And you can use the hardscapes throughout. They can be used for unity. They can be used for rhythm. hardscape sometimes can even be a focal point. You know, it just depends on the site. Probably more so for commercial than residential, but they're there. Okay, and that wraps up the principles of landscape design. I know the lecture is probably a little bit shorter here, but if you go and you do the 10-question quiz at the end, that will fill up for the 1 hour. I know when I talk about when I do these lectures face to face, they tend to last a little bit longer because there's people in the classroom or the audience that are asking questions, and when they ask questions throughout the slide presentation, they tend to they last longer. I know I've got some 1 hour classes that my 1 hour CEU classes that last longer than an hour. And then you have to take the 10-question quiz, and this one, you know, is a few minutes shy. But by the time you take the 10-question quiz and you know, go to that and take it, it'll be the full hour. So, but if there are any questions, you can give me a call or shoot me an email. I appreciate it, guys, and I will see you in the next lecture.